Welcome to another episode of our Personal Empowerment Premium Audio Series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program today is entitled Letting Go. Now, there's a lot of things we can let go of, things from the past like regret, remorse, embarrassment, and shame, things from the present like tension and physical pain, and things in the future like worry and being upset about things that haven't even happened yet. Lots of things we can let go of, lots of things we're attached to that are good to hold on to, but there are a lot of things that we're attached to that we need to let go.
Holding on is a fear response, and what's odd about it is that holding on feels like something you do when you want to be safe. But again, it's triggered by fear, the feeling that you're not safe. And the irony is that often, depending on what you hold on to and what you mean by holding on, but let's just start with the idea of muscular tension. It often makes you less safe, and in a sense gives you even more to be afraid of, because you're not limber when you're holding on. Muscles are tight. You're not strong when you're holding on. You're not coordinated when you're holding on. I mean, all you have to do is watch professional athletes or good amateur athletes. They're always, it seems, trying to shake off stress and tension. You know, a baseball batter is busy hitting his bat on the plate and taking these practice swings, and the pitcher is pumping the ball into his glove, and all other forms of athletes. Golfers take their practice swings, and tennis players, and you see runners before the race jumping up and down. What are they doing? You would think they would want to hold on, to gather stress and tension, to be strong and fast, but they know better. Stress and tension slows you down. And so we can start with the physical, and then we'll explore how this concept is true emotionally and mentally and even spiritually. The idea that holding on holds you back, slows you down, and degrades your performance.
So, I mean, what do we mean by holding on? Well, technically, it's really about the body's tightening up and stopping the breath. Holding on is about, it's about the response, the fear response you have when you either stop breathing or start breathing real shallow, and then all of a sudden the muscular tension gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and that triggers the brain danger. So danger triggers the brain to do that, and that triggers the brain to believe they're in danger. That's the vicious cycle. Because sometimes there's no real danger, but we do that because we're confused and we feel endangered. Or sometimes there is real danger and we do that. So the way you hold on to something is to tighten up. The way you let go of something is to release. It's really quite simple. The way you let go of something is to let go of muscular tension and let go of your breath. So if you have a negative thought, this is like the earliest application I ever used this for, was dealing with negative thoughts. I have a negative thought like, I'm walking down the street and for some reason pops into my brain the idea of tripping and falling on my face. Well, my reaction to that thought would be, because part of my mind really thinks it's actually happening, to, do that. But if I realize, it's just a thought, it's not really happening, then I can instead respond, instead of reacting to that thought by doing that, I can respond to that thought by going, and with the thought, boy, I'm glad I got that out of my system. Boy, I'm glad I let that go. Because the power is not in the thought. The power is in what you think about the thought. And so if you hold on to the thought, is by thinking, yes, I accept that thought. Oh, my God, I'm going to fall. Or letting go is saying no to the thought. I'm glad that went through me, but I don't need to hold on to that thought at all. It was just a passing thought. It has no power, especially when I give it no power by letting go.
That's amazing. The power is not in the thought. It's whether you agree with it or not. Now, you're probably pushing back on that idea because virtually everybody believes the initial thought constitutes the power of the thought. But no, it's like whether you agree or not. If somebody says something insulting to you, the degree to which it hurts is directly proportional to your buy-in. If you think, yeah, I really am that bad, weak, wrong, inadequate person, whatever it was they said that just insulted you, and you agree, well, then it hurts. Now, you're going to blame them for hurting you, but it was really your agreement, or maybe your confusion. It wasn't that you knew definitively that you were inadequate or bad. It's just that you weren't sure. So that agreement allows it to hurt. But if you rejected it, as Steve just rejected the idea that, what if I fall down? Then how could anybody hurt you? It's like that Eleanor Roosevelt quotation that personally I love. I used to have it hanging in my office in L.A. It said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Without your permission, without your buy-in, that's what hurts." If you know that about your own thoughts as well, what if you're insulting you? What if you're demeaning you? What if you just doubt or wonder, or you've got these negative programs going on? Maybe you learned somewhere along the way that this was being humble. We believe in humility, but it's not humble to put yourself down. And maybe you just think there's some benefit in playing small. If you agree with that, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think tip-of-the-tongue phenomena is another great example of what Steve was describing. Now we're talking about memory, and the harder you try to remember, that is, the more effort you make, and the more subtle muscular tension you pick up anywhere in your body, everywhere in your body. Could be your hands slowly forming fists. It could be scalp tension. It could be in your groin or lower back. Depends on where and how you tighten up when you try to remember or, quote, try to concentrate. And, of course, the stronger effort you make in terms of muscular tension, the more likely that memory is to evade you, to continue to be just beyond your reach. Isn't that a frustrating feeling? We call it tip of the tongue. And often it's only when you stop trying and give up. And then what do? You breathe, you relax, you let go of muscular tension, you turn your attention to the rest of the topic and say, well, anyway, blah, 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 blah. And what happens? More often than not, it pops right into your head. Now, that's pretty profound. So already we've given you examples in a couple of areas of how muscular tension, this holding on response to fear, anxiety, even confusion, can weaken and debilitate you physically, as it does athletes, but also mentally, whether you're a student or whether we're talking about at work or just in your daily problem solving and decision making, trying to sort things out. The harder you try, the more you're going to hold on, and the weaker you're going to be physically, and the weaker you're going to be mentally as well.
So if letting go is often a process of surrender, then, interestingly enough, holding on is often a battle. But the battle isn't with whatever you're holding on to. It's not with the embarrassment or the shame or the fear. The battle is with trying not to feel it. The battle is pushing it back down and avoiding it. The battle is the avoidance of feeling those feelings. That's where we fight. That's where we hold on. Holding on really comes down to avoiding the feeling, avoiding feeling the feeling or thinking the thought or pushing it down or not wanting to experience it, because the way you let go of something is to experience it, feel it, and release it. But if every time it comes up and it dings at you and nags at you and you push it back down, that's where the battle is. That's the psychic battle that goes on. And although you say it feels like it's holding on to you, the battle you have in trying to not pay attention to its signals, to its warnings, that's where you're holding on to it.
The idea that fear's holding on to you, that's so very important. I mean, who does not know that feeling? You might even say sometime, boy, I wish I could shake this. You know, what? This feeling that's holding on to me. What is it? Well, I don't know. It's just a concern. It's consternation. It's blatant fear. It's a little bit of worry. It's a bit of nervousness. It's anxiety, stress. Don't we have a lot of names for what really comes down to as confusion and fear? Fear is the way confusion feels. Confusion is the way fear thinks. That's
nice. Say that again.
That's nice. That's the way I sort of put it together in my own head.
Yeah, that's nice.
Fear is the way confusion feels, and confusion is the way fear thinks. They feed each other. You mentioned it. That's the vicious cycle.
Like fear, oftentimes where there's nothing to be afraid of, you're confused, and the confusion thinks it's fear. So that makes a lot of sense saying it that way.
Yeah. So if only I could shake this, as if it's
grabbing onto me. It's like Velcro. It's clinging to me.
That's exactly the way it feels. And yet we're holding on to it. And again, when you're afraid, you can see your hands slowly curl up into what? Fists. So you're holding on, number one, with a fist, but what's the other thing you do with a fist? You hit things, you beat on things with your fist. Okay, so now we understand that violence has, if it hasn't been obvious to you in the past, a direct relationship with confusion and fear. You tend to fight or beat up or hit or be violent when you're confused. So what's the best way to be nonviolent? To understand what it is you're confused about, right? The idea that understanding has a relationship to peace, that understanding, as we've talked about in the past, has a relationship to love, that goodness and truth has a relationship to understanding, is not something we hear nearly often enough. In other words, understanding redeems fear, evil, hostility and violence, anger, negativity. The antidote to all of those things is understanding. Now the question is understanding what? Understanding who or whom or when or why, or what is it that I don't understand? Big clue. Usually the bullseye right in the center of what you don't understand, in spite of appearances, is actually yourself. And where have you ever been able to enroll in a class in understanding yourself? I think college classes in psychology are full of people that would love to understand themselves, but they end up studying abnormal psychology. They don't study models of transpersonal psychology or positive psychology. What do successful, happy people do to become fulfilled? Most psychology is about studying people that are sick. While that's important and there's room for that, wouldn't it be nice if we could learn about ourselves, since that seems to many of us to be at the root of so much of our pain and our discomfort and the holding on, physically, mentally, and I think we're going to make a case for emotionally and spiritually as well, holding on, which really makes things much worse.
Yeah, I mean, the power, again, is not in whatever the thought or idea is. The power is in what you do with it, and that's where the holding on or letting go comes. People say, well, I worry, and I said, well, how about letting go of some of that worry? They go, well, I can't let go of my worry because, it just keeps coming up. It's not like I want it to come up, it just keeps coming up. Well, they think that what you're supposed to let go of is the thought. You can't let go of the thought. The thought comes up. Thoughts just happen sometimes. You don't care about the thought because the thought has no power. The thought is, I love the Rod Serling quote, submitted for your approval. You get to approve or disapprove of the thought. So whenever the thought, like the worry thought that my business is going to fall apart or my marriage is going to fall apart, whenever that kind of worry thought pops up, it's just saying, I've got fear of that inside of me. Now, am I going to let that fear make me afraid, or am I going to let that fear make me courageous? What am I going to do with that fear? If I take that fear that something bad's going to happen, and I go, oh, I'm facing it, I'm experiencing it, I imagine what it would be like if it happens, and I make sure that my body feels safe imagining that, knowing it's just an imagination. It's not real. It's just an imagination. And it doesn't make me tighten up. It doesn't make me hold my breath. If it makes me tighten up and hold my breath, then it hurts me. But if it allows me to let go of my breath and let go of my muscle tension, then it heals me. This is a really important concept. The thought is a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what you do with it. It's not in and of itself either. It just is. If you take that thought and go, oh my God, that's probably going to happen, then that thought turns into a really bad thing. If you take that thought and go, oh, I'm glad I'm letting go of some of the energy of that, so I don't have to be so concerned with that because I'm doing what I need to do to deal with that already, I don't have to fear that. So, once again, it's almost always the case where you go into something, experience it, and breathe into it that is the process of healing and letting go. And it's when you're afraid of facing something, and every time the thought or idea or feeling pops up, you push it away, you jump away from it. That's the battle, that's the fight that causes the holding on.
If you take that to the extreme, if you look at the bigger picture, you can understand why life really is what you make it. And people will say that. It's a well-worn saw or axiom. Yeah, life is what you make it. Fact is, almost nobody really believes that. We've got 98% of people walking around believing that instead life is what's done to you. We're encouraged in all areas and aspects of life to play victim, to be a victim, and then use that to appeal to other people for sympathy. Again, we'd rather have love, but we'll settle for sympathy. And playing victim, getting together and having a pity party. Oh, poor, poor, pitiful me. I mean, if you'd like to politely and discreetly eavesdrop on conversations in public for a few weeks, I think you'll find that the vast majority of what people talk about with each other are appeals for sympathy. Let me tell you some horrible thing that happened to me that, of course, I had nothing to do with. And as soon as they're done or pause to catch a breath, the other person jumps in and says, "Oh, that's nothing. Let me tell you what happened to me and how I was really a helpless victim in this situation. Don't you feel sorry for me? Well, not until you feel sorry for me." And what? That's caring for each other or caring about each other? It's really quite pathetic. And yet most people do that much of the time. If instead we say, well, part of life is what's done to me, but a much bigger part of life is what I choose to do with what's done to me, that's accepting responsibility for your choices. I think it was the existentialist Camus that said, life is the sum of the choices you make. Life is about what we initiate and how we respond, not what's done to us, unless you frame it that way. If your response is to focus only on being a victim, then life will, of course, be about the side that's done to you. But it's actually a two-way street. And if you reflect on it just for a little bit, even now, I mean, can't you see, can't you feel in your body how what I choose to do with this situation or circumstance, there's the rub. I mean, that's how you create your reality. This is the reap what you sow part. And again, I don't think anybody who believes you reap what you sow, or in the East it's called karma, what goes around comes around, that self-fulfilling prophecy that is really in all philosophies. Don't think most proponents of that would say you're never a victim, you're never blindsided, that you literally create everything that's done to you. It's not like that. You know, not only do you reap what you sow, but a few other things are going to grow as well that maybe you didn't sow. I mean, you're living in a world, in a shared plane of existence with a lot of other people that are planting seeds too. So none of us is an island, as John Donne says. It's not that clear. It's not that certain that you created everything in your life. That's not what it's about. Responsibility and understanding karma, or you reap what you sow, the law of cause and effect, the law of attraction, is understanding that we have choices. Do I agree with this thought, as Steve was saying? Do I agree that I'm safe enough to let go and remember and think more clearly? And as a result of letting go of muscular tension, also be stronger and healthier and more coordinated? I mean, isn't there a reason illness has been called dis-ease for over 1,000 years? Wouldn't that mean that good health comes from being at ease, from letting go? Yeah, mental health and emotional health as well as physical health.
And every aspect of your life is affected by what you hold on to or what you let go of, every single area of your life. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I'm facing right now is letting go of a lifelong attachment to like needing to do something, always needing to do something. You know, like if I'm not being productive, then I'm being lazy, you know, like go do something. And now I'm in a stage of my life when there's a lot of time when I don't have to do anything. I could just be, you know, for the first time in my life, really, I can focus more on being than on doing. But the habit is like I sit down and I pick up a book and all of a sudden there's a thought in my mind that says, you know, you really should do something. You know, you really should be productive, you know, go do. And I don't have anything I need to do right now. So if I fight that thought, which is what I was doing for a while, like, nah, I don't need, and just ignore the thought, then it keeps coming back. And I'm holding on to it by ignoring it. That's the battle. Ignoring is the battle. But when I realized, well, wait a minute, I need to pay attention to this thought that says I need to do something. And so I feel the thought, I hear the thought, you need to, and then what's beneath the thought? And then beneath the thought is this feeling, if I don't do something, then I'll be lazy or stupid or unproductive, and I'll feel guilty. Well, where's that coming from? Oh, Mom, Dad, oh, now I get, that was like, you know, do your homework. That was like, don't sit around, that was like, oh, that was that girlfriend that like got really angry when I was sitting reading a book all the time because I wasn't doing the household chores. That wasn't my voice. That was like stuff that I took in from other people, that it's not okay to just sit and relax. And so once I got deeper and deeper into it, the more you go deeply, the more you surrender to letting yourself feel that feeling, those feelings, all the thoughts and feelings that are surrounding it, the more that you get what Michael called the, you know, complete fix to everything, understanding. You know, once you have understanding, then it takes so much of the charge away from all those things that bother you. So I'm still dealing with the issues. I still have that thing pop up now that says, hey, you should be doing something, you know. But now, instead of pushing that thought away, I see it as yet one more opportunity to go even deeper into what it is I'm holding on to.
You've reminded me of happiness.
That's a nice thing to say. Thank you.
It is. It is a nice thing to think about, although some people, parents or others in, quote, authority, often are not only threatened by others not having something to do, but also threatened sometimes by others being happy. I remember there's a couple of characters in that old movie Breaking Away about the bicycle race at the University of Indiana. And the boy is always happy because he's found his passion. It's riding on the highway, road racing, you know, and he just loves to do that. And he pretends he's Italian because he's emulating the best road riders in the world, the Italians. And every morning he gets up and he says, "Buongiorno, Mama, buongiorno, Papa," and he goes off and rides his bike. And this is just irritating his father. There's this classic scene in the film where his father bangs his fist on the breakfast table and says, "Why is that boy so damn happy? Why, when I was a kid, I was never happy." Well, there you go. So sometimes people who are not happy and have never been happy are envious of other people that are happy, or people that feel that they don't deserve periods of rest or peace or time to enjoy. They just have to be productive, and they don't know why. They're not asking the questions that Steve asked. Those people can get in your face. Those people can disturb you, right? You don't want to hold on to that. Just because they're holding on doesn't mean you have to hold on. I mean, imagine the idea of holding on to happiness. If happiness is anything, or humor, laughing, what does that do? It causes a letting go. It's a release. Again, it's relaxation. Why do people say laughter is the best medicine? Why would laughter heal? Well, because laughter is a form of expressing love, and love is letting go. Why? Because fear is holding on. So let's round this circle a little farther now. Love is letting go, and all letting go is love. Could be a quality of love like understanding or laughter,
Remember, letting go, for example, letting go of a marriage doesn't mean you discard the marriage. It means letting go of the need. It's letting go of the drivenness in it, surrendering into it. Letting go is surrendering into it.
The idea that I have to manage rather than accept things the way it is.
Yes.
I have to work the program here as if life is a cold bowl of clay and I must make something out of it. Well, you know, the funny thing is if you don't make anything out of it, most of the problems in your life resolve themselves anyway. I don't want to overstate this. You're not going to find two people that believe in goals more than Steve and I. But while goals are very satisfying and also productive and a way of creating motion, even if you don't attain the specific goal, it's likely you'll change your mind as you get closer. That's not everything in life. And often, the whole idea of holding on to a goal or being obsessive or fixated on things having to go or be a particular way not only creates stress and tension that causes illness, weakens your body, accelerates aging, degrades performance, physically and mentally, as we've already discussed, but emotionally and spiritually can create enormous amounts of sadness because it's really a distraction from how rich life is all by itself. And if you're busy thinking, if you're busy tormenting yourself about having to micromanage every situation, and you're not even sure why you're doing it, except way in the foggy past there's maybe a parent or a grandparent that was way too critical and you're still trying to please them, even though they may have already died or passed over. Amazing how many adults are still trying to please parents that are no longer breathing, not even on the planet anymore, but they're still trying to earn that acceptance. You know, years ago I saw Paul Simon on a 60 Minutes program. You know, Paul Simon, he's got more Grammys than I have fingers to count them on. This incredible icon, rock and roll, folk rock singer. And he broke down on 60 Minutes, admitting that his father never said, "I'm proud of you, I love you, I can't believe my son is Paul Simon." He just, for whatever reason, couldn't say that, right? Paul Simon, for all the accolades, for all the money he's made, for all the Grammy Awards, for all the gold records he's got hanging on the wall, gets on 60 Minutes in front of a national, international, most likely, audience and breaks down because his father never gave him the acceptance that he needed. That's something that people hold on to. It's hard to let go of your desire to please other people. When it comes from early childhood, when it's a real need, to mature to the point in your life where you don't need that approval or that acceptance, when you can forgive your parents and other people for being critical, for not having the willingness or the ability, perhaps, to verbalize out loud, "I'm proud of you, I love you, I'm so happy to be your father or your mother for what you've done." Lots of us never get that. And my concern is, as a listener, you may be thinking right now you're the only person or one of a handful of people that never got that or didn't get enough of it from your parents. And so you're holding on with muscular tension to this idea that somehow you're not quite good enough. You're a little inadequate. You failed at this. Again, children don't hold their parents responsible for their dysfunction. If my father came home angry, it never occurred to me that he just had a bad day. I always assumed I had done something wrong. And my mind is saying, You didn't do anything wrong. And I'm thinking, what did I forget? What did I do and then forget about? What screw-up did I... It just never occurs to a child that it may be the parent. And then to grow with this attachment, this belief system, into an adult that has a hard time putting that down. Boy, that's a great reason for taking self-improvement classes and getting counseling and doing the work that you need to do to what? To let go of this emotional pain. So now we move from holding on physically to holding on mentally to what happens when you hold on to your hurt, to the wound, right? It never heals. You never get to that understanding that is the antidote if you believe that it's all your fault and never consider the possibility that maybe the people you couldn't please were largely unpleasable. And that maybe if your parents were often angry, just maybe it didn't have that much to do with you. Maybe it had nothing to do with you. Maybe they were just angry about a bunch of other things that, as a child, you really couldn't understand. Imagine being able to no longer hold on to that, to put it down and let it go.
Yeah, Paul Simon said, some people never say the words, I love you. It's not their style to be so bold. Some people never say the words, I love you, but like a child, they're longing to be told. So if you're growing up with that fear, that need to please other people, and that fear of the ramifications if you don't please other people, that's a great place to let go. I mean, if you haven't got anything else you need to let go of, that's a great place to start. We always have some of that. You know, so much of unhappiness is caused by trying to please other people. And all of misery virtually comes from trying to please unpleasable other people. You know, like that's really a good definition of misery is when you keep it's banging your head against the wall because they're not pleasable. No matter what you do, they're not going to be pleased. It only pleases them to be unpleased. You know, they get great pleasure out of being unpleased. This is such an amazing conundrum for so many people, especially if those people are parents or relatives or peers or someone you give credence to. It's all about who you give the authority to. It's not really that they have the authority. Some people give the authority to anybody that's older than them. Some people give it to anybody in uniform. Some people give it to any, but whoever you give the authority to, that's where the power comes from. If somebody you never saw before, some Skid Row bum walks up the street and says, I think you're a a-hole, well, so what? But if, somebody like your grandma says it, it's like, ouch, that really hurt, it's like, it's not the words. It's like what you do. So the way you let go of the need to please other people is to experience that need, to go into yourself. The need you have inside of you is inside of you. You can't go out there. You got to go in here. This is that paradise stuff we're talking about all the time. You got to feel safe to be able to do this. You go inside and you face that feeling of what it would feel like to not please these other people, and the fear that you have of how bad that guilty feeling is going to feel, that regret. You feel those feelings. You release those feelings. You breathe so that your brain knows there's no real danger from these feelings. They aren't real. They're just an imagination. They're just a thought. And release them. And then you let go of the need to please others, which really gives you the opportunity to be much better at pleasing others when you don't need to. When you focus on, pleasing yourself, you'll find that that's one of the most pleasing things you can do for everybody that you know.
In Eastern philosophy, the idea of an attachment, of holding on, is of concern because it's basically a distraction from reality. You say a distraction from reality, what's going on in my head is my reality. Well, nevertheless, that may be, but that's our point. What's going on in your head is what you think and feel. And it often bears directly upon reality, and vice versa. But in and of itself, they are beliefs. Now, some of your beliefs are true. Some of your beliefs are true for a while, and then over time, they become untrue, which is confusing because you say, wait a minute, it used to be true, and now it's not true. What happened? I missed that. And we've already talked about beliefs about ourselves, these self-limiting or self-imposed limitations. I'll never be any good at that. I can't do that. I can't really have a job I love because if I do what I love, I'll never make any money. In order to make money, I've got to do something I don't really love, be a doctor, a lawyer. And the idea that we could just be really, really good at what we do, whatever it is, and become prosperous that way doesn't really occur to us usually. So we spend a lot of time running away from what we don't want, and yet we're not sure what to move toward. And so by trying to avoid what we don't want, we're in a sense holding on to, just by paying attention to, so as to avoid what we don't want.
Isn't that so weird? We hold on by running away, and we let go by running into. It sort of seems like
no wonder it's hard to believe.
Yeah,
I've used this example before, and I got to give attribution again to Alan Watts for this. Thank you, Alan. I just think it's so profound. Imagine falling off a cliff at the same time a boulder falls off the cliff. You and the boulder are falling, and there's going to be a disastrous ending down at the bottom of the cliff. But can you feel the tendency that you probably would have to want to hold on to that boulder that fell off the cliff at the same time as you? It's falling just as certainly as you are, but somehow there's some part of us that feels as if we could only hold on to that, there'd be some protection. Well, that's what we do with our belief systems. That's what we do with thoughts, whether they're true or not. If we believe them, that's true enough. Doesn't matter if it's false. I believe it to be true, especially if it's about me, or could be a generalization about other people. Truth is not the issue. I believe this thought, and I'm going to hold on to it for dear life, in the same way I'd try to hold on to the boulder as if that's going to offer me some protection. But you're both going to hit the ground, kersplat. And the holding on isn't going to help, right? Well, just as we've described the negative consequences of holding on physically and mentally and even emotionally, in a sense, spiritually, it's understandable that if we are, in fact, spiritual beings born into a physical world, where we go from being connected to all that is, you know that saying, not only is the drop in the ocean, but the ocean is in the drop. There's really no separation in spite of appearances. Well, as spiritual beings, we're never separated from the oneness of life. But as physical beings, when we incarnate, we are definitely separated. We may be connected at the heart, emotionally and spiritually, in a sense, even mentally. Oh, I knew you were going to say that, that kind of stuff. Or stare at the back of somebody's head. They'll always catch you and turn around and want to know why you're staring at the back of their head. We're all connected on some level, and yet here we are in these separated bodies. What else would you do but reach out and try to hold on? As if there's something about existing in a separated body that feels like falling or failing. I mean, we spend our whole lives reaching out to try to connect, to get attention, to get acceptance, to get some kindness and some love, to get a hug, to be cared for throughout our entire lives. Nothing is more significant. Some people make earning a living or making money more significant, but they'll be the first to admit as well, you can't take that with you. Well, what can you take with you but love? If all material things pass away, everything dies, everything goes to the junk heap sooner or later, it's all rusting and corroding, what does last but love and caring and all of its qualities, kindness and humility and generosity and respect, and there's that word again, understanding. If we but understood, we wouldn't have to hold on to anything. Do fish have to hold on to water to make sure it's going to be wet when they get to their destination? No, they exist in an ocean of water. There's nowhere they can go that's not wet. And so it is with love and understanding. You exist in an ocean of love. Everywhere you go, you're immersed. Every cell in your body is imbued with a caring nature. Let's just keep it simple. For love has dozens and dozens and dozens of qualities, but let's just focus on the caring part. Everywhere you go, you have a capacity to care. It may be a newborn animal that you see, a little goat or a horse romping out in the field, or some baby puppies or kittens. How can you not care? It may be a group of flowers in the springtime that is just so beautiful that you pause and look, and you care. Or watching a spider spin a web, and you say, I don't really like spiders, but there's something fascinating about this spider spinning a web that gives you pause, and hopefully you stop just long enough to reflect upon the spider spinning the web, because you care. You don't have to carry that caring nature with you from place to place. You don't have to carry humor with you or kindness with you from place to place. It's always there. It's always with you. And so if there's nothing to carry, there's nothing to hold on to. There's no reason to hold on. Love is letting go. All letting go is love. Holding on, then, would not only be a fear response, but causes fear, which creates more confusion, more fear. Fear, confusion, holding on, think of that as the negative, right? And then the positive side of the coin is the letting go, the peace of mind, the love, and the understanding.
So the holding on is an avoidance caused by fear, and the letting go is understanding caused by love. It's really pretty simple. To hold on to something, you move away from it. To let go of something, you move toward it. It seems contradictory, but it's the truth. And so it all starts with moving toward those things that you want to let go of, encountering them, experiencing them, living them, and then with the breath, releasing them. It starts with the breath. So let's start with the breath. Close your eyes. Get comfortable if this is a good time for you. Take a couple of really slow, deep breaths. This lets the brain know you're safe and moves you out of what's called the beta brainwave state, if that's where you were in a divided attention mode, into alpha, or if you're already in alpha, maybe a little deeper level of the alpha brainwave state. As with the eyes closed, you take a deep breath or two and do what this show's all about. That's find yourself in paradise. So imagine yourself in a safe and peaceful place that feels really nice, a place you create in your mind where you're safe, and it's your paradise. Relax, release, and find the peace.
Create and sense a feeling of letting go. Throughout your body, you can scan your awareness slowly through the core of your being and actually feel muscular tension falling away. Just allow it. Don't need that. If you make this a regular practice throughout the day, it's surprising how much stress and tension you tend to gather. Especially if you're watching television and there's a program on where there's violence, people fighting or arguing or guns shooting. It's remarkable the amount of tension that you'll pick up sympathetically. May seem like an odd use of the word, but that's really what it is. It's sympathetic tension that you tend to pick up by being exposed to danger or the appearance of danger, fear, or really anything confusing. Put your awareness, for example, on the space around your ears, and notice how that space around the ears sags or droops a little bit as you relax your scalp now. Isn't that surprising? You thought you were already relaxed, and yet even in the scalp, you could feel a letting go once you knew how to monitor it and where to look. As you let go, you become physically healthier, stronger, live longer, are better at putting off illness and dis-ease. You become more coordinated in the same way mentally, scholastically, understanding, problem-solving, decision-making. You get smarter. Your memory improves, as we've discussed. Take another breath. And as you exhale, feel yourself letting go, not only of physical tension and mental stress, but emotional hurt. Feel the letting go. Imagine the emotional hurt, the sadness, the depression, the confusion, the false assumptions you've made about yourself. Let them go. What if the hurt that you thought was holding on to you is the result of you holding on to it? You could find out by putting it down. Letting go emotionally is called forgiveness. If you don't forgive, you're saying, I will teach them a lesson, set them straight. I will hurt them the way they hurt me by continuing to hurt. Which is silly, obviously. The axiom in philosophy is that to hurt another person by refusing to forgive is like trying to hurt them by throwing a burning coal at them. You'd have to pick up that burning coal and hold it in your hand before you threw it. You're only hurting yourself, don't you see? But you could forgive. You can put it down. You can let it go. So physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, what if you could be like a cloud that is just happy being a cloud wherever it is, and if the wind blows this way or that, that's fine. You don't really have an agenda. This could be overstated. Everyone has an agenda. It makes sense. We, in our society, have to earn some income. We have basic bills that need to be paid. We can't all be monks. Obviously, there are times to set goals, to create an agenda and accomplish something. But shouldn't there also be times when our sense of accomplishment could be supplanted in our better interest by just being and listening to the wind in the trees and seeing the beauty of nature all around us and feeling the harmony of life? When we don't interfere, can't we have a little bit of that as well and sort of balance the two, that which we've accomplished with our ability to just be here now?
So with the understanding that holding on is moving away, it's avoidance born of fear, and that letting go is understanding, moving toward and getting clear, then what you need to do will suddenly appear. It's very easy to know how to let go. It just involves moving toward and surrender. It's easy to know how to let go. Just feel it and let it go under and over and around and through you. And breathe deeply and let it release. The way you let go of anything is to bring it into you and make peace. Letting go, surrender, move into, and make peace.
Like the Taoist, resist nothing, go with the flow. Look at martial arts. They don't stand toe-to-toe and duke it out in the middle of the ring. They go with the flow, but maintain their balance. They go with the flow, accepting the reality of the situation they're in so as to have better choices. These are not contradictory ideas. To accept where you are so as to have more choices about what you do with the situation. It's not an either-or at all. Acceptance is the entree to creative outcomes, to the kind of control that is far superior to and trumps by far the attempt to manage instead what's done to you. Breathe, inhaling. Hold for just a moment, and now let go, identifying as the one that lets go even of breath. And open your eyes wide awake and alert, back in the room, feeling fine, alert, rested, refreshed, even better than before.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating concept that holding on is about moving away and that letting go is about moving toward. It seems so contradictory, but it's really a powerful understanding that you can let go of anything by going into it, surrendering to the experience of it, breathing through it, and it goes away. The thought doesn't go away. The power the thought has over you goes away. The charge on the thought or the feeling is what goes away.
Thanks for listening. Join us next week and every week, and tell your friends about the Finding Yourself in Paradise premium audio series at focusedpassion.com. Forward the newsletter with the link at the bottom of each and every newsletter, and use the Send One to a Friend gadget, too, to share programs you really like with people you know will benefit from them. Log in to focusedpassion.com, and you'll see the link on the same page as the built-in player. Send one to a friend, or share one with a friend, I think it says. And as always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha from Maui, Hawaii.